Good evening and welcome. This is another edition of Monday Night Live. Normally, Monday Night Live happens exclusively within the Recovery 2.0 membership. But every now and then, the subject matter is so important and so relevant and so necessary that we decide to open up Monday Night Live to the entire community and anybody who's interested in participating in this particular topic. Tonight, we're talking about recovery in the time of COVID-19, and the relevance and the importance is such that we wanted to open this one up. So welcome from wherever you are, from around the world, wherever you are on your path of discovery in your life, wherever you are in your process of healing. At this point, I think we can all agree that everybody everywhere is in need of recovery. Recovery of something, and we can talk about what that is this evening. But before we begin, before we start, it's always good to stop first. So I'd like to encourage all of you to enter in a 3-minute meditation with me, and we're going to do a little bit of a process together, okay? So I'd like you to, wherever you are, if you're sitting on a couch or on the floor, or in a chair, if you could sit up so that your spine is extended and that your heart is lifted. If you can draw the chin in slightly so the back of your neck is nice and long. Your hands can rest. I like to bring the thumb and forefinger together. That makes a nice feeling, a nice connection. And I rest the backs of my hands on my knees. And let's allow the eyes to close. Draw your attention inward and take a deep inhale. Pause at the top and exhale. Pause at the bottom and let's inhale through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the mouth. And exhale through the nose. Inhale through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the mouth. And exhale through the nose. Draw the eyes up to the third eye point and focus intently at the third eye. Inhale through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the mouth. And exhale through the nose. Inhale through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the mouth. And exhale through the nose. Very good. Take a deep inhale through the nose. Pause this breath. And exhale. Come with the eyes open. Very good. Blessings and welcome to everybody. Recovery in the time of COVID. I was in India in March, and I had checked myself into an Ayurvedic retreat center, Ayurvedic clinic, a hospital, if you will, for health and healing. The stated purpose of my visit was simply to deal with, work on greater health, generally through the cells of the body, detoxification, a reboot and a reset, if you will, and also the some inflammation in the body. So in this clinic in southern India, you had a architecture, like everything everywhere was built. Everything everywhere was built to support you in healing. And I would say that it was really about creating a rhythm where healing could take place. Everyone would have to slow down. You would be brought all of your food each day, which was individualized for you. All your medicines would be brought to you. All the treatments would be done. Everything was utterly personal, personalized, and individual. And this is the Ayurvedic way, that biochemical individuality it's an understood thing that each of us is different. We're in a different body. We're in a different mind. Our body, mind, spirit system works differently than anybody else on the planet. And so they treat us as individuals in our meal plan, in our treatment plan, and everything. The idea of an Ayurvedic retreat such as this is to completely reset and to clean, to detoxify the body. So while there, I experienced the most extraordinary detox that I may have had in my entire recovery, and that is saying a lot. I was able to slow down my nervous system to a point where I could feel even the pulses in my body. I could feel my heart. I could hear my thinking, and I could watch it with great clarity. My intuitive capabilities came online. Just incredible. And I felt like there was a value to a regimen like this for anybody, that this could benefit anybody in our society today. While I was there, COVID-19 was exploding across the world. I was there from March 7th or March 8th to the 22nd. March 8th to the 22nd. And if you track in your mind the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, you'll remember like it was really, really coming in full at that moment. There I am in southern India, literally in a village that's dedicated to healing, isolated from anybody outside. And COVID-19 is finding its way across the world. I remember my maybe fourth or fifth night there. Part of the detox that I was feeling was some of the symptoms were that I was sneezing and had a lot of mucus coming out of me, really detoxing, you know? And so that night, after reading a couple things and hearing, you know, really, really panicky things from people back in the United States, friends of mine, I started to have these thoughts. My mind started to race. And I got caught in fear. And I laid in bed by myself at this healing retreat center. And I wondered to myself, my God, maybe I have it. I've just traveled from northern India. I was at a festival. There were lots of people there. Maybe I have it. What's going to happen? And it's like, you know, I just sat there for about 3 hours in bed. And I had one of those moments that I think we're all familiar with. I would describe it as a long, dark night of the soul, where you just, you know, for a moment, I've lost my presence. I'm swept up in fear. I'm not thinking clearly. I'm in a detox mode. I'm alone by myself. And it's all going on, you know? And my mind in those 3 hours or 4 hours really got the better of me. With all the yoga and all the meditation and all the recovery, yes, it still sometimes happens. And this was one of those moments. I woke up in the morning. I spoke to the physicians, the Ayurvedic physicians who were there, and they basically had a big laugh about the idea that I was sick with COVID-19. The reason they could laugh with, you know, so much confidence at the point was because they were monitoring my health at every turn. And I simply didn't have the symptoms that we were all now hearing for the first time, what the symptoms of this thing are. I just didn't have those symptoms. And they were like, you don't have that. Relax. Come back to your presence. They told me, come back to your presence. And I had expressed to them honestly, you know, I spent a few hours in fear last night. Now that was like day 4, day 5 of this thing. And about 10 days later, I was in a very, very different place. Number one, I was fully detoxed and feeling very strong and fully healthy. And there I was, about to return home to the United States, about to rejoin my wife, who was in northern India. She had stayed up in northern India. I was in southern India to go through this retreat. And we were going to meet at the New Delhi airport on March 22nd. March 22nd was the day that India closed its doors and shut down. And if you recall, India shut down really quickly. We were on the final plane that left India. The final plane that left India. Literally. And we got home to the United States. We got home to a world that had changed. I can't even say it changed in front of our eyes because we weren't home to witness it. We came to a world that was no longer the world that we had left just a couple months before. And I think if there's anything we can all agree on, it's that our experience of being in the world, you know, in many respects feels vastly different from where it's been. And we've watched this experience for the last 7 months. I want to really preface tonight's talk by telling you where I was, to explain how I got home, because I think it's utterly relevant. Because the big message was, come back to your presence. Come back to your presence, come back to your presence, come back again and again and again. So we'll start there. There's something I noticed, and I wonder if the rest of you noticed too, that The world of recovery from addiction, the 12-step universe, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, all the other anonymous programs, when it became clear that it was not safe and we were not going to be allowed to meet in person, within 72 hours, the entire universe of recovery had mobilized, created online meetings, distributed schedules and links, and were up and running to serve people in recovery. That's the world of 12-step fellowship. I have never, ever seen an effort like that, so quick, so seamless, so efficient. And I say necessity is the mother of invention. I used to say to people who would give the 12 steps a hard time, talk about how dismal the statistics are, the success rates, all this. I'd say, you know what? You would not want to wake up in a world tomorrow where people didn't have 12-step meetings. You would not want to be in a world where the 12 steps did not exist. For you cannot imagine the force of good that has balanced the scales of light and dark, of good and evil, that has kept us to keep a balance in this world when it comes to addiction. The ripple effect of 12-step programs and 12-step meetings, thousands and thousands of meetings across the world every single day. You would not want to be in a world where that did not exist. Now, I'm not saying the 12 steps are the only way to get sober or the only way to be sober, but I am saying they are the most widespread. And within 72 hours of this outbreak, of us not being able to meet in person, meetings were up and it was happening and it was game on. That's remarkable. I also need to call out my dear friends over at intherooms.com. These guys, RT and Kenny P, are heroes of mine. They have done something by putting up their technology in their meetings that is just, I don't know how you calculate the value of what they've done. I don't know how you would calculate that. The ripple effect, the way that their online meetings have existed for 12 years. So they were up and running, 12 years ago, 12 years before this particular pandemic happened. And through this pandemic, and rightfully so, they've had an explosion of interest in their site, and thousands of new members are coming in every month, and rightfully so. It's good. So you've got all the 12-step world, then you've got the 12-step world represented on intherooms.com, plus a whole bunch of other meetings. And then we have the Recovery 2.0 meetings, which came online this year as well, to serve this purpose. And so what I'm here to do, number one, is to say recovery in the time of COVID-19 has obviously shifted from face-to-face human touch to face-to-face human touch with digital interface between us. But it's still happening. It's still happening, and the connection that we need, the minimum, let's say the minimum viable product of recovery meeting is this, and we're getting it. And so this has existed for people from the beginning of this pandemic. We're very, very fortunate in that respect. And I want to start on that positive note because, if we've learned anything, it's that adversity creates the possibility for basically, two roads. One can succumb to the adversity, or one can rise, thrive through it, rise above it, and learn from it. There is probably a third road, which is a mixture of the two. Well, I got my ass kicked for a month, and then I got my game together, and I was able to, get around people who could support me and help me to navigate these difficult times. We know in recovery that we never do this alone. So recovery in the time of COVID has shifted drastically in the way that we meet. But It has not shifted at all in the fact that we meet. We just meet in a different way. Harken back now to my story from southern India, where they told me when I was gripped in fear, return to presence, return to presence, return to presence. So I'd like to talk about that through the lens of the last 8 months. We've always had something to be afraid of, human beings. There's always things to be concerned about, to be fearful of. And we find that it's a normal part of the human experience, that we experience fear at times. However, it's not a normal part of the human experience to be gripped in fear all the time, or even most of the time. It's a thing that you can visit now and then when it's appropriate, and then you return back to this state of presence and calmness. But not so for the last 7 or 8 months. This has been a period of time where people have been gripped, many of us continuously. And we have taken actions, some of us, that have led to the continuation, perpetuation, and the increasing of that fear. And I'd like to talk about that because these actions that we've taken have moved us further away from presence. And they've planted us further into this, let's just call it the force field of fear. The force field of fear. One action that people have taken is to watch the media, watch the news, to tune in to what someone referred to as mainstream media. Whether you are on the conservative side of the spectrum, liberal side of the spectrum, makes no difference at all. Because if you're tuning into the media, what you are being exposed to is fear. You're being exposed to ideas over which you have no control. The fact that you have no control is being presented to you on a silver plate daily. The expansion of your fear is part of the agenda. That's not a conspiracy theory. It's just, your fear is an important element in keeping you in check. And if you are waiting for the government or a corporation or an organization that is more interested in power and the maintenance of their power than the common good, then I would urge you not to wait a second longer. For nobody truly is coming to save you. Now you might find that a fearful reality, except when you draw your own power back into yourself, surround yourself with people who are working a program of recovery, start to work on the solution to problems rather than focusing your mind on the problem itself, especially problems that you have no control over. Now you might say, wait a minute, Tommy. Isn't there a reason to be concerned? Of course there's a reason to be concerned. There's a real and true virus that exists in this world that is a threat to your health and well-being. Of course you should be concerned, and especially people who have compromised immune systems should particularly be concerned. However, does that mean you're gripped in fear all day long? Do you have to be? I've spoken to some people and they feel it's a responsibility for you to be gripped in fear all day long. I'm like, well, why should I be fearful? Well, because you could get this thing. I'm like, well, yeah, I could get this thing, but I'm taking care of myself. I'm doing the things I need to when I have to leave my home. I'm staying distant from people. I do wear a mask in public, generally speaking, but I don't do that when I'm out on a beach in the open air. That's me. Am I concerned about dying from COVID-19? Well, I'm not. People say, well, you should be. Okay, well, I'm simply not. I'm just going with what I feel. Other people should be concerned because their immune system is compromised. And those people have to take great care. And we need to take great care of them. My point in saying all this is simply to say, if we want to focus on the problem and we want to think about, oh, I could get this. Oh my God, this terrible thing could happen to me. Well, you could always live that way. You can always live that way in a time of a pandemic or not. And so this is the very, very important thing. The lesson that I was given back in India. Bring yourself back to presence. Bring yourself back to presence. Here's presence for me. I'm really focused on my breath work. Why? I want my lungs to be particularly strong at this point in time. I want the benefit that the breath work gives me is an increased immunity. It helps me to strengthen my whole system. I'm working on my yoga because the yoga keeps my body healthy and it keeps my mind calm. I eat a pretty amazing diet, and I'm working on that, on nourishing the cells of my body. I like to sweat and exercise. Why? It detoxes me. And when I do these things, I feel a sense of elevation. I feel a little better than when I don't do those things. I like to get out into nature as much as possible, fresh air as much as possible, getting into the forest, hiking, going swimming at the ocean, going on the beach, walking with my wife, taking long hikes, just getting out there and breathing. These are the things that I can do. I also like these online meetings that we get to have, and I like to connect with my friends and family, even if it has to be through Zoom. I still like that too, and I make it a regular part of my week. I love the Recovery 2.0 community because there's so many amazing people working on so many amazing things, and we've got lots and lots of meetings and programs and ways that we can connect with one another. So you see, I do the things that I can do to stay healthy, to build my immunity, to stay present and calm. And I stay out of the game of worrying about the future. I stay out of argument with people. This is a big problem these days for folks. I know you know what I'm talking about. People these days are arguing not to try to prove a point that's important for everyone to understand, but so that their position is right. People are arguing to prove their point. And it's so silly. It's so silly because we're fighting with each other. We're weakening ourselves by trying to prove our point. On the path of yoga, and I would argue on the path of recovery from addiction, keeping a pristine and clear mind is of utmost importance. And when our mind drops into the frequency of anger, the frequency of resentment, we lose our clarity. We lose our ability to meditate. We lose our ability to be calm. We lose our ability to be present. We open ourselves up to fear of every kind. And there we are, living in the problem, not in the solution. I was told, come back to your presence. Come back to your presence. Right. My fear gripped me, took away my presence, and I had to return to it. You might say I had to recover my presence. And so what I'm working on every day is recovery of presence. It'll mean different things for different people. For you, your routine each day in order to recover your presence, it might be call your sponsor. It might be go work out. Might be do a yoga thing, a meditation thing. Get to a meeting, do some step work, go to a therapy appointment here, on Zoom. Whatever it is, whatever your program is, whatever your work is that you do each day to bring yourself back to presence, it's always been critical. Nothing has changed. You could say, well, it's even more critical now. Okay, fine. But it's always been critical. When we're gripped in fear, when the mind runs away with us in anxiety, when we feel stress, and that feeling of chronic stress in particular, where life starts to feel like you're swimming upstream, when we're in that position, we must have a practice. We must have a routine, a ritual, a ceremony, something that we do, that we can always do to bring us back to presence. Being in fear at this point I feel for some people feel I'm supposed to be frightened all the time. And so that's this sort of acceptance of I'm just going to be in a whole world of shit for a long time. And who knows when this is going to end? I'm just living in fear. I'm just living in fear. And I just want to point out to you again, this is not just a now thing. This has been going on. Each of us must look within. Ask yourself, how am I? How am I really? Am I anxious? Do I run a little bit on the tense side? Am I a little more on the depressive, sort of internal suffering kind of side? Am I working it out? And do I have teachers and practices that can help me? Am I working on my recovery in this life? And if the answer to that question is yes, then you've just got so much going for you. But if the answer is, what Tommy is saying right now, I feel like I have almost accepted that I'm just going to be unhappy in this life. I am here to tell you that your acceptance that you'll be in fear and anxiety and that's just the way it's supposed to be, it's just, I really want to encourage you to investigate that. Because I truly believe there is a choice. Recovery in the time of COVID-19, everything has changed. And nothing has changed. Everything has changed. Nothing has changed. In the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm paraphrasing, it says something to the effect of we stopped fighting. What did we stop fighting? Everything. We stopped fighting everything and everyone because we stepped onto a foundation, we stepped onto a path that one day at a time was a path of connectedness. Connectedness with what? God, higher power, great spirit, nature, the quantum field, the consciousness underlying everything. That we agreed that the work that we're doing was leading us to a one day at a time establishment of presence. So that we would not be struck down in fear each day, that we would not be living in anxiety. And if you have forgotten what it feels like to be relaxed, then I just beg of you to please come to my yoga class on Wednesday morning and feel it again. Part of the reason we practice is to remind ourselves. Part of the reason we go to beautiful places or step out into nature or even a playground or a park is to remind ourselves. What's going on in here, this brouhaha, this thing that's happening, this thing that's happening is not what's happening. I'm seeing the world through a lens. And if I want to focus on the dark, whether there's a pandemic or not, I can find darkness. Can't you? And the flip side of that is no matter what's going on in the world, I can find the light. And it's a choice. It is a choice. Each of us has the choice to work in the solution to the problem at hand. What is the problem at hand? It has many names. There are many problems. Let's just call this one fear. The problem at hand. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. Very, very wise words spoken by a wise leader who once upon a time led our country out of one of the darkest periods we've ever experienced. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. So the problem at hand is fear. What can we do? Return to presence. Return to presence. Again, I'm gripped in fear. Return to presence. Return to presence. How do I do it? I have good news for you. I have good news. And some of you are going to hear this and you're going to say, I don't consider that to be good news. Here's the good news. There's a solution. There's a solution to the problem of fear. And the solution is called recovery. And the way that we get there, in point of fact, is through the vehicle of truth. There's another vehicle called introspection, self-inquiry. There's another vehicle called community and love, support, right? That's all. To work on the mind, we have an unbelievable thing available to everybody right now, everywhere in the world, and it's called meditation. Please, please understand. You know how sometimes you can say, all right, sometimes you need to say, all right, well, this path, like the 12 steps, is not for everyone, right? We kind of need to say that. Okay. This religion, whatever it is, well, it's not for everyone. This spiritual path, okay, well, it's not for everyone. Meditation is for everyone. Period. And if you're in recovery and you're not doing it, then you're simply not using one of the most important things that's available to you for you to gain a level of presence which is necessary for the fulfillment of your purpose on this planet. Meditation will give you the gift of presence which will be necessary for the fulfillment of your purpose on this planet. I cannot put it any more succinctly than that. Recovery in the time of COVID-19. Nothing has changed. Everything has changed. The things that we required before are the same things which are required now. Only now, in our greater suffering, our greater insecurity, our greater sense of stress and anxiety, maybe we're a little more open to hearing the messages which have been here for a long, long, long time now. The masters have spoken to us. The masters have spoken to us. And the masters speak within your own heart to you. Can you hear them? It's the same message over and over. Breathe. Reflect. Look to your personal experience and learn everything you can from it. Connect with others. Put yourself around wise counsel. Put yourself around wise teachers. Live in community. Come out of isolation. Live truthfully. Be in service to others. These same messages are not the messages of now, they're the messages of always. These are the messages of always. And recovery in the time of COVID, we need that now. We need those messages now. I just want to say a few more things, and then I'm going to go into these questions. So, be the person that lives in the solution to the problem. If the problem is fear, work on your own presence first. That'll be the most important thing. What I'm about to say is going to be perhaps welcome or confusing to some people or off-putting. Don't argue. Don't argue anymore. It just isn't productive and helpful. Definitely have your position. If you need to state a position, you certainly can do it. But if somebody disagrees with you, don't argue. Don't be mad. Don't be upset with them. You know, how could you vote for this person? How could you believe that thing? Oh my God, don't you see what's happening? Oh my God, we're losing our rights. We're about to lose everything. We're about to, ah! What's really being lost is your presence. Keep a calm and clear mind now more than ever. Be the person who looks to the solution. Stay away from divisive counsel, divisive words, divisive media. There's nothing there for you. Only pain, only fear. Only fear-mongering and the exploitation of your fear. Please, please listen. Please listen to this counsel. Don't go there anymore. You already know who you're voting for. There's nothing more that you need to know about either side. If you're anything like most people will tell you, yeah, we don't have the greatest choices available to us right now, but you have a feeling of which way you're going to go. At least go out and vote. You may not even believe the system works anymore. Vote anyway, just in case. There's nothing more that you need from any of the main media outlets. Nothing. So let it go and come back into your presence, come back into your power. The world of the future will be a world of self-government. The future, self-government, where people are held responsible for their behaviors and the way they carry themselves in the world. Okay? So work on that now. Govern yourself. Be responsible. Be positive, be loving, be helpful. If someone disagrees with your position, let them disagree. It doesn't matter. Find sources of uplifting messaging. Messaging that has hope. Messaging that has realistic and appropriate calls to action. Find people who are living on the bright side of things, not who are caught down in the doom of it all. If it gets away from you, don't beat yourself up. Tell somebody about it. Come right back. Forgive yourself for being human. And say, I got off track. I lost my presence. I'm coming back now. Recovery in the time of COVID requires your presence now more than ever. Now, tomorrow is the 1st of September. You know what's great about that? It's National Recovery Month. And so for this next 30 days in September, people all over the country who are interested in recovery from addiction are going to be offering ways to celebrate our recovery, ways to engage in uplifting, meaningful connection with others in recovery. We get to review our recovery and make little corrections and wherever we need to. This can be a real celebration. At Recovery 2.0, well, all year long, we have a 7-day free trial that anybody can join our membership. The reason I want you to know about that is I invite you into 7 free days of just checking out what we do. There's no cost to you. If you don't want to join our membership after that 7 days, you cancel. And that's that. Our membership is incredibly inexpensive. And let me tell you what's happening in September and what happens most months. Every Monday night, we have a live presentation. Either me or another thought leader will present different ideas regarding recovery, health, wellness, yoga, meditation, spirituality, etc. Every Wednesday morning, I'm presenting a live yoga class, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. Every Thursday, I'm presenting a live coaching session where you guys bring your questions, and we have mini coaching sessions, which last anywhere from that lasts anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes every Thursday night. So this is happening all year long in our membership, every week. And now we're adding something very special that I want you all to know about tomorrow night, September 1st, as a kickoff for National Recovery Month. We've decided to invite a series of extraordinary teachers into our community as resident faculty members. Think about getting access to university professors, except their topic of choice is psychology, recovery, spirituality, health and wellness. Well, tomorrow night we have an incredible woman who's our first resident faculty, and her name is Heather Monroe. Every Tuesday night for the foreseeable future, Heather will be lecturing and presenting, taking us through meditations, psychological processes, everything incredibly uplifting. She has a show that she's going to do for us called Psychology and Spirituality with Heather Monroe. She's a licensed therapist, a somatic experience practitioner, and she's also a certified yoga teacher. This woman brings a lot to the table. So just as part of our membership, every Tuesday night now, in addition to everything else I just named, we're going to get to be with Heather Monroe. Wow, it's going to be incredible. Wednesday nights, starting next week, September 9th, we're going to have live concerts featuring Susie Shefflin, who does live singing bowls. And if you've ever heard Susie or seen Susie speak, she has an extraordinary story of recovery, and she is an expert when it comes to providing that sound current, that beautiful healing sound current with healing bowls. And so every Wednesday, starting September 9th through September and beyond, we're going to be having live concerts with Susie. So you should see that essentially what we're doing is we're going to be building a university of opportunity for anybody in recovery to engage in activities that uplift you every day of the entire year, from music to art to psychology to science to lectures to yoga to meditation and all the things that can keep a person on the path one day at a time. What's the point of it all? Well, let's just go back to our theme of the evening: presence, presence, and presence. And also joy, enjoyment of life, unimaginable joy on this path of discovery, on this path of recovery. That's the point, and that's what we got coming up here in September and every month in the Recovery 2.0 membership. So please join our membership, if only just to have the first 7 days free, to experience all these incredible events that are coming up this week and for the weeks to follow. If you stay with us and you want to become a member, amazing. My commitment is I'm going to do everything in my power to support your recovery, as is the entire Recovery 2.0 team and the entire Recovery 2.0 community. So it's my greatest hope that you will take advantage of what we're offering. Okay, thank you for listening to that. And I'm seeing 26 questions here. And so I want to begin by saying, everyone who's here, we've got 426 people in the room right now. Please stay with me for just another 8 minutes to the top of the hour so that we can all say a prayer together, 426 of us strong. So please stay for another 8 minutes. Let me check out these questions. I may go longer, but we will say a prayer together at the top of the hour. So if anybody needs to go, I want to be respectful of your time. We will have prayed together. If you want to stay for this Q&A, I'm going to go a little longer. So what I'm seeing, okay. Someone's saying they had to leave the talk. Is there a possibility of watching this later? Yes, we will record this and it will be in the Recovery 2.0 membership. Another reason to join membership is because we put all the recordings from all of our lectures there. Okay, great. So let's see, we got, all right. Should I be seeing my fellow participants or just you? I think you should be seeing just me because we're in the webinar format. Okay. Oh yes, someone's asking about the Ayurvedic center where I was in southern India. So because that's a hard to pronounce, I'm going to put it in the chat bar. It's called Vaidyagrama Ayurvedic Healing Center. Okay. And that's going to go to everybody. Okay, there we go. Very good. So there it is. I just put it in the chat bar to all you guys. Vaidyagrama Ayurvedic Healing Center. Good. Okay. Let's see here. A few more questions. Oh, here's one. What do you feel about the current Black Lives Matters movement? I mean, I'm a fan of Eminem, but I don't think they should name black people after him. I'm not really sure what that exactly means, but I will tell you, I'm a big supporter of the Black Lives Matters movement. Huge. I mean, it has a relevance and importance. If you really understand the movement and what it's for, you'll get that it's really for all people, and that we're in a time where African American people in the United States are, to a great extent, under siege in a whole bunch of ways. It's not that other people aren't also challenged. So, that's always going to be the case. But is there a relevance and an importance to the Black Lives Matters movement? Of course there is. And it'd be hard to find somebody who didn't think so, if you really understand what the movement is about. And of course, the standard stock, response to that is, well, all lives matter. Yes, we're all aware of that. But our attention is being brought to a particular issue that's befalling a certain segment of our population. And that's really the point right now, for us to sort of become aware of the whole. And what I love about this so much is that yoga really asks us to become more aware of the whole, not just to look at parts in a reductionist manner. We really do need to look at the whole. And so in an interesting way, the Black Lives Matters movement is asking us to consider all the parts. And so here's a part that has been, disempowered, pushed off to the side, not considered in a bunch of different ways. And I will agree with any other minority population also struggling in certain ways. And I also look at this partially beyond all that as an socioeconomic issue, that it's not just about race, even though it's very important that we look at that issue. It's also about socioeconomics and the ways that our socioeconomic reality doesn't serve everybody, is tilted and slanted and unfair. So I'm all about it. I'm also all about an exploration of any movement that can bring us to a greater sense of unity, a greater sense of justice and fairness, as I know that you guys are too. How could you not be? So thank you for that question. Okay, so here's a person that's saying, does what you're saying apply to anxiety from grief? I'm not feeling fear from COVID, but lots of reasons for grief. So grief is one of the most important processes that we can go through. And the operative and most important part of that statement is go through. Go through. Often when we feel anxiety around grief, it's because we're afraid that the grief is going to swallow us up. We're afraid that grief will last forever. We're afraid that the reasons to grieve will never go away, that we'll be lost in this feeling of grief. And for those who have grieved well and grieved completely with all their heart, they can tell you a different story, that they've been able to move through that period of grief into the next thing, into another emotional state. When we don't grieve, or when we mix our story with grief, sometimes we get stuck in grief, and then we have anxiety around the grief. Let me give you an example. This may be a weird example for you, but I had a cat, a kitty, for 17 years. And when that kitty died, her name was Millie, I was overcome actually with grief, felt it very powerfully. I wasn't there when she died, and I felt incredibly badly about that. And I stayed in this grief longer than I felt was necessary. I felt like, wow, I need to get over this, but I'm having a hard time. I spoke to a very wise teacher, and this teacher said to me, grieve with everything you have. Grieve with everything you have, so that the universe can see that something important has been lost to you. And one more thing. Grief is something you can go through. Grief plus ego, what he meant by that was grief plus story, is something that you can get stuck in. My story was, I wasn't there for my cat. I wasn't there when she died. I could have been there, but I blew it. I wasn't paying close enough attention. I didn't realize that it was that close to the end. I chose not to see. And because of that, my poor cat was lonely at the end. I'm not a good owner. I didn't give her a good life. Blah, 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 blah. Now, none of that was true. That was story. That was just story. That was story mixed with grief. And boy, oh boy, was I stuck in that story, and I couldn't move through my grief. And I had anxiety around it. The minute that he clarified that for me, said, let go of that story. You were an amazing caretaker of this cat. You gave this cat an amazing life, so much love. And it was the cat's time to go. And there's really nothing more to say than that. And I was able to let go of my story, and then finally I was able to move through the grief. Do you understand? So grief with story, we get stuck there. Okay, so it's 8:01 or 6:01. As I said, let's say a prayer together. Let's say a prayer together. Okay, bring the palms together at the heart center. For those of you who have to leave, please feel free after this prayer. So if you would repeat after me, this is the Recovery 2.0 prayer, and it's very apt, very appropriate for this time. Inhale to begin. Universe, put me in the places you want me to be, with the people you want me to be with, doing the things you want me to do. Thank you for the joys and challenges of my life. Amen.